Aloha mai kako, a Como by the Curtain Call, a program of reviews, previews, interviews, and features of and or with the great art and artists on Maui and beyond. I'm Paul James Brown. Behind me is what Lahaina used to look like. This will be the backdrop of my program as a tribute to our losses. Our hearts are with our brothers and sisters who are suffering heart-wrenching grief on the West Side and in Kula. Ebb and Flow Arts has been cultivating a sophisticated audience for contemporary music lovers since composer and pianist Robert Pollock founded it in 1999. Its audiences have experienced 99 world premieres and 182 Hawaii premieres. This exposure has made Maui one of the premier sites in the world for new music, and we are the beneficiary of this largesse. Last Saturday at Keavalai Church in McKenna, Duo Diorama performed a program that featured three 21st century works and two 20th century pieces spanning nearly a century of composition. Duo Diorama is the violin and piano duo of wife and husband Ming Huan Shu and Winston Choi. They came to Maui for the first time 10 years ago and presented the world premiere of Robert Pollock's duo number 6 for piano and violin. The last time they were here was 2018. They were scheduled to come in 2020, but the pandemic canceled that appearance. Ms. Shu is an extraordinary musician whose tone is glorious, fingering flawless, and dynamic range is unlimited. Mr. Choi is an award-winning pianist who tackles exceptionally challenging works with clarity and virtuosity. Their program was demanding of every nuance of their instruments, particularly Ms. Shu's. They opened with Kyung Mi Choi's You, My Temple 2022. Ms. Choi, no relation to Mr. Choi, is a Guggenheim Fellow and an Aaron Copland Award winner, among many others. Besides her master's in music composition, she has bachelor's degrees in chemistry and science education, as well as studied Korean literature on the master's level in South Korea. She is currently associate professor of music composition at Roosevelt University in Chicago. Mr. Choi introduced this piece as, quote, a love song, dramatic at times, unquote. I would say that the middle of this work is definitely romantic, with the piano punctuating the phrases by the violin. Then, in the conclusion of the work, we get this climbing phrase into the highest register of the violin, followed by an explosive phrase on the piano, accompanied by a wailing, sustained scream on the violin, and then a clear denouement. Sounds like an orgasm to me. The dynamic demands of this work are astounding. Robert Pollock's Serenade, written in 2018, is a piece Mr. Choi told the audience is one of their favorites because it is, quote, lyrical, emotional, symbolic, and beautifully crafted, unquote. There is a wonderful romantic song in the work. I couldn't agree with Mr. Choi more. Alfred Schnittige's Sonata Number 3 for violin and piano 2019 was cinematic in three of the four movements. There was a horror story here. In the first movement, Andante, Its Darkness, brought images of a monster stalking its victim. In the second movement, you can see the victim fleeing from the monster. The third movement, Adagio, breaks away from the cinema and brings the listener to a profoundly heartbreaking, mournful melody by the violin. The final movement, Senza Tempo, means timeless. Here, we return to the cinema and we hear the victim trying to hide from the monster who is looking for it, dashing from place to place. But in the end, the monster wins. After an intermission, the audience was treated to the work of Igor Santos's 2019 composition, As Light Becomes Form. This work was said to be light coming through stained glass windows. This work featured the piano much more than previous works. See if you can see the light with your ears. About 4 minutes into the work, this rapid scale duet was introduced with an explosive pluck of the violin strings at its conclusion. This motif was repeated throughout the rest of the work. It was an exceptionally virtuosic section for Ms. Shu. The final work in the program was the oldest, Bela Bartok's 1928 Rhapsody No. 2 for violin and piano. In the first movement, Lasso Moderato, there was robust piano work. And in the second movement, Friss, Allegro Moderato, there was a march tempo followed by almost bluegrass violin, which also showed up toward the end of this movement. About 9 minutes in, he abandons his bucolic theme for what sounded like an urban dance. You can almost see the traffic darting in and out and the magnificent skyscrapers, and the conclusion of this work was absolutely eruptive. The audience leaped to its feet to show their appreciation for their masterful work they had just witnessed, and their gratitude was rewarded by a Hana Ho from Mr. Choi's arrangement of Bernstein's Somewhere from West Side Story and Yip Harburg and Harold Arlen's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It was a glorious end to an oral banquet provided by these world class artists. Hope they don't wait another 5 years before they return. Well, that's Curtain Call for this week. Mahalo for tuning in. I'm Paul James Brown. Maui Strong. Ahui ho.